Hare Krishna, everyone. We welcome everyone for today's Bhagavad Gita class, which is part of our ongoing Bhakti Shastri batch. We are going to resume our discussion from the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Before we start that, let us together offer prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nite Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatai Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gotase Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Go Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So welcome once again to each and every one of you. So we are discussing from the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita titled as Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. We have discussed the 29 verses and we have discussed up to 16 verses. Before we begin our discussion for today, we'll a little bit change the style of our presentation or our class today. I'll give a kind of we'll have a discussion, we'll discuss about the verses, but today I'll ask questions to all of you to have more discussion here and just to hear from all of you what's your understanding, because it's quite a practical topic that we're going to talk today, or maybe we can make it in that way. But before we begin with, the very first thing we're talking about here, Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness, which is precisely called as Nishkam Karma Yoga. So how to perform Nishkam Karma Yoga? Lord Shri Krishna says, in this chapter, Arjuna, give up the results, which Krishna has been saying all this while. Don't be attached to the results of your work. Utilize all your results in the service of the Lord. And we discussed that. How is it possible? How can we do that? For 1 second, to say that don't be attached to the type of work, that's okay. But not to be attached to the results of my hard effort and labor is very, very difficult. How many of you agree with that? People are least bothered today with work, but people are more bothered with the result. Yes or no? Their whole attention is the result that they want. Work by hook and crook, I should get that result. And in today's context, the result means money. So if the IT job gives me more money, I'll become an IT engineer. If being a doctor, I can make more money, I'll become a doctor. This is how people choose profession these days, isn't it? So type of work is not what considered largely. People consider the result more. Lord says, give up your result. And for that, to explain that, Lord Shri Krishna speaks about the very important concept of 3 doers. And through that concept of three doers, we learned that effectively in this world or in this creation, we are not the doer of anything. No action is being performed by us. We don't induce anyone else to perform an action. Only thing that we can do is desire. So this is a very interesting chapter, chapter number 5, actually. Where Lord Shri Krishna, you can say there are 4 primary sections. The first 12 verses talks about Nishkam Karma Yoga. How to perform Nishkam Karma Yoga. What is the meaning of the first 12 verses effectively? The first few verses where the Arjuna asks the question, my dear Lord, what do you want me to do effectively? Renunciation or work? And then Lord Shri Krishna explains once again in details what is Nishkam Karma Yoga and what is the importance, significance of Nishkam Karma Yoga over Sankhya or Jnana. More or less they are same, but Nishkam Karma Yoga is easy. And then Lord Shri Krishna speaks about from 7th verse onwards up to 12th verse, how to act in Nishkam Karma Yoga. In other words, how to be part of this world yet not get affected by the things of this world. In other words, how to not get entangled. As it is said, every journey begins with a step. There are steps that we can take towards the right direction. There are steps that we can take towards the wrong direction. In this chapter, Lord Shri Krishna teaches us what is that right direction, in which direction we should be moving. Therefore, this first section, the verse number 1 to 12, concludes with a very beautiful analogy where Lord Shri Krishna says, be in this world and not be of this world, just like a lotus flower. It grows in a pond, but never gets affected by the water. And how it is possible? That process is called as Nishkam Karma Yoga. But while performing karma, which is undoubtedly, first of all, it's not easy to give up work because we are karmatmaka buddhi. Our mind is too attached. We are too much into future planning. All of us do it. There's too much heavy conditioning. So how, while being in this world, performing action, how I cannot get attached to it? Lord Shri Krishna then explains the concept of three doers. This is what we have largely discussed. But here is my question to all of us. How to still practice Nishkam Karma Yoga, even after knowing all this knowledge? It's not that easy. How many of us, knowing that, dedicate the results in the service of the Lord? We can give up everything for the pleasure of the Lord and be happy with the work that we do. So how do we do that? Let's begin with that as first question for the day. Any thoughts? How to practice Nishkam Karma Yoga? What is required? Philosophically, theoretically, Lord Shri Krishna has spoken enough. Some of us might have understood it. But now to practice, apply in one's life, what is required? Hare Krishna. Itna sansani, itni khamoshi, itna sannata achhi baat nahi hai. Any thoughts? Yes. Mother Rati Manjari, and we'll go to Chaitanya Bhagwan Prabhu. Yes, Mother. Please enlighten.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. If someone is working and if he can contribute every month to the temple propagation and its functions, that will help, like as a monthly.
But how much to contribute? That itself is a question to discuss. How to determine what is my bare minimal requirements.
Srila Rupa Goswami has said 50% should be given to
How many of us give 50% to the temple? Yes. Theory is okay. My point is how to do it in action. So I agree with you. Theory is good, but I just don't want to discuss on theoretical level today. Theory we're reading. I just want to, let's see. And in fact, Lord Shri Krishna gives the answer for it in Bhagavad Gita itself. Often we might just jump over it and overlook it, but I'm going to quote that shloka to you in a short while. We all have read it. So give it a attempt, Mother Rati Manjari.
Thank you.
Yes, Chaitanya Bhagwan Prabhu. Let's hear from you. Wait. Sorry, you just need to unmute yourself. Go ahead, unmute. Unmute, please. Unmute. Unmuted. Unmuted. Okay, till the time you fix up, Rosie. Sunny, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, first we know that we need to perform every action for Krishna. So in one song of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, I heard that he told that every action we need to perform for Krishna, and even while maintaining our family, we must think that we are maintaining them for Krishna's pleasure. And if we bring that mentality, then
So, Sunny Prabhu, are
if,
you able to think like that?
Prabhuji, I'm
Yes or
practicing.
no?
No,
My point is how to do it. You again going to the theory. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Chaitanya Bhagwan Prabhu, yeah, you're unmuted now. Go
Hare
ahead.
Krishna. Prabhu, am I audible, Prabhu?
Yes, very well.
Yeah, Prabhu, as in the same principle, for example, for us in the material life, very easy to do for my son, for my wife, because I do have a love in first place. So if we do our sadhana, then we'll be developing gradually towards the love, towards God. Then it will be easy automatically without any separate endeavor. Then my action will be doing in the same principle for the pleasure of the Lord.
Fantastic, correct. I totally agree with all this thing. But somehow you all are missing out on a very important thing. Let me quote an example of Srila Prabhupada, and then I'll give you a Shastric reference, and then maybe we'll speak 1 or 2 lines on it. Srila Prabhupada, when he was about to go to America, he was living over, what's the name of that lady? Morarji. Her employee quarters in Bombay. And Prabhupada, as an elderly gentleman, had befriended with some neighbors. So one of the neighbors will come and joke with Swamiji or Srila Prabhupada that, Swamiji, why do you want to go to America in such an old age? Oh, I know, you still have desire to go and take a look how America looks like. Of course, that was a joke. And Prabhupada also said, oh, my dear son, what will I go and see America in this old age? I have no desire to go anywhere. So then he asked, so why do you want to go? And then Swamiji said, I only want to go. No, he said, I want to go because that's my instruction of Guru Maharaj. I want to spread the message of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. The man said, oh, if that's the case, then send your books. Send your books. That's it. And then Prabhupada said a very profound point. I want all of us to remember it always. We somehow miss it out. We get so much caught up with so many things. A very interesting point Prabhupada said, yes, that I can send a book, but what they study in the book, they have to see it in practice. They need a devotee, they need an example, they need a role model who live by the teachings. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, verse number 15, Lord Shri Krishna tells Arjuna, very interesting. I hope all of you are able to see the screen. Evam jnanatva kritam karma Purverapi mumukshubhi kuru karmaiva tasmatvam purve purvataram kritam. Lord says, evam jnanatva. Evam in this, jnanatva, knowing it all. Kritam karma, perform your karma. How you should perform your karma? Knowing the divinity, knowing this transcendental knowledge which I am giving you. Oh really? Just like that I perform an action? Lord says, no. How you perform an action? Purverapi mumukshuvi. You should follow in the footsteps of Purve, your your ancestors, predecessors, right? Predecessors. You should follow your predecessors. Oh, are you saying I should follow Dhritarashtra? He's also my ancestor? Lord says, no. Purverapi mumukshuvi. What kind of ancestors? Mumukshuvi, those who are liberated. And which example Lord Shri Krishna quoted to Arjuna for this purpose? What is that example? Janak Maharaj in 3rd chapter. You should follow in the footsteps of, he was a liberated personality, father of Mother Sita. Kuru karmeva tasmatvam. So kuru karmeva tasmatvam. Tvam is you, tasmat, therefore. Again you see the conclusion here. Therefore, Arjuna, perform your actions. Kuru karmeva. Purve purvataram kritam. As has been performed by Purve, predecessors, Purvataram, in ancient times. As they have performed, those who are liberated personalities, just like that, you should perform your action. So a very important point here that I want to bring to your attention, that in this path, just hold on. What is this? Yeah, I don't remember. Fine, do it. That's okay. We'll see that later on. What was I saying? So for us to practice our bhakti life, it is very important for all of us to have some role. Now, how many of you identify or recognize this point? Can I have just a wave of hands, yes or no, you're making sense or not? That we all need, you're a grahastha, we need some grahastha role models. Somebody is a brahmachari, he needs some role models in brahmachari ashram. Of course, it can be across the board also, and it not be one role model, it can be multiple role models, but the bhakti can be practiced when we have those examples. So who can be the best example? Now, for those who are in Grihastha Ashram, Srila Prabhupada, how he lived his household life. He taught us by his example how to live a household life. Who can be a better example for Grihastha than that Srila Prabhupada himself? Of course, Prabhupada was not in a brahmachari ashram, but the principle was still the same. Dedicate your life for serving Krishna, regardless of whichever ashram you are. And then Prabhupada in sannyas ashram definitely set the highest standard of how the sannyasi should be. And that is how this becomes practical. Otherwise, we'll always say, oh, Rupa Goswami said 50%, oh, this said that, and that said. And our life will not be changed much because we'll not be able to apply it. Because when we face the challenges, we have to have an example. How did our ancestors counter it? Therefore, for leaders, it's very important. Even your accounts is very important when you're guiding students to be able, you should have read Srila Prabhupada's letters. How did Srila Prabhupada reconciled any conflicts? How did he give his guidance? And while giving his guidance, how much he gave leverage to the material conditions of life and how much to the spiritual priorities? That's the point here. So to perform Nishkam Karma Yoga, which is the subject matter of so far discussion, which Lord Shri Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to do it. So two things are needed for that. First, we need to have a role model. Second, we need to understand work has to be done for the purpose of purification. And three things, not two things. The second thing, to have this understanding, work is done for my purification so that I can get freed from all the entanglements that I am in. And the third aspect is to know this factually that I am not the doer. And therefore, Lord Shri Krishna in the 5th chapter speaks about the concept of three doers. That's how the Nishkam Karma Yoga subject matter becomes complete. All right, with that little background, let's begin with our presentation for today. Where are we? Yeah, we're here. Okay, let's take a look, move forward, 5th chapter. I've kind of changed a little bit the acronym for this chapter. Last time we discussed dates, we are discussing step today. So first 12 verses, as we have already discussed, stay in the world, how to be in the world and not get affected by the conditions of this world. That's a point. This is what is being discussed by Lord Shri Krishna in this chapter. So generally, when we are living in this world, for an ordinary person, the way he performs his actions, the way he creates his habits, the way which further creates his characters, defines his destination. In other words, if person is too attached to the work, too attached to the results of his action, which means he's too much into sense gratification, he is entangling himself into the law of karma. So pious or impious, which Lord Shri Krishna have discussed in the 4th chapter, both are entangling. Therefore, Lord Shri Krishna 4th chapter talks about akarma. So this is the subject matter of this first 12 verses. And within that, Lord Shri Krishna speaks about how to act in Nishkam Karma Yoga. To be able to act in Nishkam Karma Yoga, first of all, we have to keep our mind and senses under control. Now, how do you keep our mind and senses under control? For that, we have to live a regulated life. I guess in this context, we have discussed the verse of, what is that, 6th chapter verse, right? Regulations. Yuktahara viharasya yukta chestasya karmashu. We have discussed this last time. Second thing, follow the ABCD formula. Like that, we keep our mind and senses under control. Act without attachment, no desire for result. How can we do so? When we understand body is a gift of the Lord, and let me perform my prescribed duty as a service, as a yajna for his pleasure. Third, Lord says, act with body, mind, and senses only for the purpose of purification. In what situation will be able to do that? Only when our goal is very clear. Goal is not within this world, goal is beyond this world. And when we understand that the only bottleneck for me to experience the eternal joy and happiness is my attachment to the results of my action. If I become detached from it, all my anxieties will go away. Just like a cashier, we discussed last time. Cashier is not attached with the security of the money because that's not his responsibility. The money doesn't belong to him. So his responsibility is just to count it and temporarily ensure for himself, as long as kept along with it, with him in the cabin. But once the money goes out of the cabin, it's lost or not, it's not his problem. So like that is being discussed. And what is the result of it, which was discussed last time? Such a person is unaffected by a sinful action, which means even if he's performing in this world, let's say he's an IT engineer and the code that he writes is being unfortunately used for any sinful activity, which is unknown to him because he's performing his action as Nishkama Karma Yoga for the purpose of purification, using results in the service of the Lord, then that sin which is incurred from his action does not touch him. This is very, very important point. Is dear to everyone and everyone to dear to him because his mind and senses are controlled. There's no chances of conflict nonetheless. And attains peace, no anxiety over the result, the example of cashier. To summarize a very important discussion that we had in Nishkama Yoga, in essence, one controls his mind and senses, works with detachment, and acts for purification. Then the work performed by him becomes worship. That is Nishkama Yoga. For most people, it would be premature, rather detrimental to sever ties with this world and duties in pursuance of spiritual perfection. To me, which means take up to the Jnana Yoga, to take up to the Sannyasa ashram is just not practical for everyone. Thus, the path of Karma Yoga or Nishkama Karma Yoga precisely offers a progressive spiritual development while simultaneously being in this world. Just as a lotus leaf is surrounded by water but remains completely dry, one can stay in this world and still remain aloof from its influences. To conclude this discussion on Nishkama Karma Yoga, to be able to do that, as we discussed from the 4th chapter, verse number 15, we need a role model. Who is our role model? Okay, there could be some brahmacharis as a role model, there could be some sannyasis as a role model, but somebody need to be from within our ashram also, who actually have lived that life in that ashram and teaches us how to live their life in that particular ashram. So that role models are also essential. So just some kind of a quick notes here. Who is a Nishkam Karma Yogi? So first of all, who am I? I'm a servant of Lord. This is his understanding. What work do I do? I do a work allotted by Lord. How do I do my work? I work with sincerity, dedication to the best of my ability. And what do I do with the results? I hand it over to God. This is called as Nishkama Karma Yogi. How to perform Nishkama Karma Yoga? We need to shift our attitude from doership to divine. What does it mean? Eliminate the feeling of I did it or I only can do it, which means I'm indispensable. Mere bina to dunya khatam ho jayegi. So remove that feeling, doesn't matter, nothing's going to stop. We can't do anything on our own without God's sanction. That was the concept of 3 doers. And there are many uncertainties in this world. Eliminate false ego. Doership feeling while doing work as a faithful servant of God. Do not take credit for the work done and humbly surrender the reward to the Lord. This is how the Nishkama Karma Yoga can be practiced and performed. What should be the motivation for work? Purification of heart. Everything is ultimately done by the Lord because He is the one who gives sanctions. He is the one who indicates Prakriti to fulfill our desires. So everything ultimately is done by the Lord in that sense. So I'm just a puppet. Next, I am not indispensable. We should simply try to become the instruments of grace. And we should understand that that is only our position. Even if you're not willing to become the instrument, God has thousands of the means to provide of charity towards my spiritual master, towards the seniors, or towards the ISKCON temple. It is not like that. The egocentric feeling of helping others should be totally eliminated. In fact, any help done by us should be forgotten as soon as possible. What it means precisely is we're not actually helping others. Whatever we do in Krishna consciousness, it just helps us. Because whatever action which is meant as service to others brings us more closer to Guru and Krishna. So who's getting the biggest help here? Us. Because the whole idea of spiritual life is serving. That's our constitutional position. So this is how this discussion on Nishkam Karma Yoga concludes. Now, moving forward, at that point of time, Arjuna pondered, my dear Lord, how can I be detached from the actions which are performed by me? And then the concept of three doers comes, which we have discussed. I'll not go into details, but I'll just put a summary here. To consider ourselves or to have this mentality that I am the controller, I am the proprietor, I am the breadwinner is totally false. Lord Shri Krishna debunks it in these three verses. In reality, Krishna explains there are three doers. Ultimately, I am only 1/3. The 2/3 is done by the Lord himself. So to think that I am the doer or I control the result, what to speak of controlling the results? We don't even have control of our own physical and mental tools by which we perform an action. Yes or no? How much control do we have on our mind? How much control do we have on our physical body by which the action is performed? If these things are not under our control, how can we control the result? Second thing to understand in this particular subject, the individual soul can only desire. What we have within us is only desire. And that desire, when sanctioned by the God, then whatever we had desired gets fulfilled. Just like a parents hold the finger of an infant and then infant learns to walk. Now in that case, in our life, parents got hold of our finger, made us walk, and we learned to walk. But in case of the larger picture, we are always dependent. Unless Krishna is holding our finger, we cannot survive and sustain. Because with whatever our desires are fulfilled, is also fulfilled by Prakriti. At all times, we are dependent. And then begins our today's discussion from now. This was a little bit of recap of what had happened in the last session. Now, moving forward. How does a person who understands this, has this knowledge, acts? How does he perform his action? And that brings us to the next section of this chapter, which is E for equal vision. What is the vision of spiritualism? I'll just take a look through the presentation, guide you through the presentation, and then we'll come back to the shlokas, look more in details over there. What is the vision of a spiritualist who is living his life performing Nishkam Karma Yoga, but in that mentality, whose senses and mind are getting purified, who understands, who don't take ownership or credit for the actions performed by him. He knows it's performed by the grace of Guru and Gauranga. I guess I made a point last time also. What we were before we came to Krishna consciousness and what we are after coming to Krishna consciousness, all of us will agree there's a tremendous difference. And the reason for difference is association of devotees. Yes or no? In that association of devotees, our desires have transformed. So if our desires have transformed, credit goes to whom? To I or to the association of devotees? If the credit goes to the association of devotees, then where is the question of taking credit for my bhakti that I do? Because it is all being performed under the gaze, just like His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj. I was having a talk with him once, and that conversation, Maharaj said, I am a mercy case. It was almost 15 years ago. When he said, I am a mercy case, and I was just wondering, he's such a big spiritual personality. I've done so many tons and tons of services over so many years all this while. And he's saying he's a mercy case. And I'm thinking I'm a self-made case. I'm thinking I'm a self-made devotee, and he's saying he's a mercy case. I couldn't reconcile that. It took me a while, and when I read this through 5th chapter, then it began to dawn to me why His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj said he's a mercy case. I don't know about him, but I'm definitely a mercy case. Why? If it was not because association of devotees, if it is not now because association of devotees, only the association of devotees, by their grace, our desires get transformed. And as we have our desires, to that degree, our future is determined. If we have Krishna conscious desires, that's what we'll get in our life. But if our desires are just to seek out material sense pleasure, that is what our actions would be. That's what our contemplation is. That's what our actions would be. So that was a little point here. So now coming to the point, what is a vision of spiritualists? So I was just saying through Nishkamakam Yoga, how a person gradually gets purified. And then what kind of vision he develops? That is a discussion in this verse number 18th onwards. So what is a vision? So a spiritualist understands there is a super soul residing in the heart of every living entity, either be a plant, animal, human, or anything. Therefore, that body becomes the temple of God, right? Either may that be a plant body, animal body. This is the vision of an advanced spiritualist. Therefore, Lord Shri Krishna says, Vidya vinaya sampane brahmini gavihasani sunicheva sapakecha pandita samadarshana. I'm just giving you a summary here. We'll go from Bhagavad Gita verse by verse in detail. So that is the vision of a learned Brahmana who sees beyond the modes of material nature. If you look at the verse carefully, Brahmane is in mode of goodness. Gavi is a cow, that is mode of goodness. Hastini is your mode of passion. Suni chaiva sopake cha, I believe dog would also come in mode of passion or ignorance. But sopake is mode of ignorance. So all these yonis, all these different bodies are made of different modes combination. So when it is said here in this verse, the transcendentalists see with equal vision, which means he sees beyond the modes. He does not identify with the body. The moment you identify with the body, you are identifying with the modes. So he sees. So who can see beyond the modes? Who can see beyond the modes? For example, if there is a 10-story building, not a 10-story, let's say there is a 80-story building, big tall tower, and the clouds have come up to the level of 40-story. So who can see the beyond the clouds? Only one who is above the clouds, right? Who is above the clouds can see beyond the clouds, which means if you have to see beyond the modes, this verse talks about the transcendentalist who has already gone beyond the modes, who is firmly situated in Shuddha Sattva Guna. At our level, we can practice. What is that practice? We'll discuss when we read the verses from the book like that. So in this way, Lord Shri Krishna tells us how a transcendentalist, or how the message of Bhagavad Gita actually gives utmost respect to every living entity. The spiritualists not only see a person free of racism, sexism, nationalism, but also speciesism, beyond the species. Does not identify with the species like that. Moving forward, okay, the question comes here. We'll take those questions once we begin with the discussion of the book. All right. Hare Krishna. I kind of was in my own world. How is it making a little sense to all of you? Because now I came back onto the screen looking at all of you. Are you getting something out of it? Able to understand a little bit? Okay. Let's begin our discussion with the 17th verse from the book. 17th verse of 5th chapter. So, in the 17th verse, Lord Shri Krishna speaks about what is the result of those who meditate on Paramatma. That is the 17th verse talks about. Tad buddhayas tadatmanas tannishtha tatparayana gachanti apunar avrittim jnana nirdhuta kalmasha. Tad buddhi, with the intelligence. Tad atmanas, Prabhupada translates atmanas here as mind, with their atma. Tad nishtha, with their determination. Tad parayana, with their surrender. Gachanti apunar avritam. In other words, who have dedicated his intelligence, his mind, his determination, has taken my complete shelter. Such a person, gachanti apunar avritam. Apunar avritam, he attains the spiritual world. Jnana nirdhuta kalmasha. And on this platform, knowledge, all his misgivings, nirdhuta kalmasha, all the kalmashas are destroyed. Like that, Lord Shri Krishna speaks about, what happens on the person to a platform of knowledge. And then text number 18. What is the nature of a person who have attained This state, which is being discussed in text number 17, who attain to the state of nirvana, jnana nirdhuta kalmasha, who is beyond all the dualities. The text number 18 says, develops an equal vision. We're going through Sanskrit connection now, okay? He develops an equal vision. So I want all of you to read this 18th verse carefully. And there is something very, very important in the verse. If you look at the Sanskrit, let's see if you can figure it out. We'll recite once. Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmani gavihastani sunichaiva swapakecha pandita samadarshinaha. What according to you here, all of us probably know this verse, very famous verse of Bhagavad Gita. Is there something gets highlighted to you in this verse? Okay, in the meantime you're thinking, let me tell you a brief story. Srila Prabhupada's story. Srila Prabhupada will sometimes speak in the class. Mahesh Prabhu, I'll just say the story and come back to you. Okay, so Prabhupada was quoting a story that how there was an interview going on, hiring process. 2 candidates were there. One candidate came, and when he entered the room, he left the door open. He entered, and he gave the answers correctly. Very intelligent, had a perfect skill set, and he went away. And then the interviewer called for the second candidate. When he entered, he very carefully came inside, closed the door, and then he began to answer the question asked by the interviewer. Finally, this candidate also went away, and now the discussion was happening within the team whom to hire. So the hiring manager, he said the first candidate was highly skilled. The second candidate was not that skilled. So his assistant said, oh, so should I confirm to the first candidate that you are hired? The manager said, no, I'm going to hire the second candidate. The assistant asked, why? The first candidate you said is highly skilled. Why are you going to hire the second candidate? And then the manager said, see, the first candidate was skilled, but he was a lazy person. Because when he entered the room, he did not close the door. This is a very basic etiquette that when you enter the room, you should close the door, because when you came there, the door was closed. So you're supposed to close the door. So then he said, the learning has no value if the person has not learned basic etiquettes. What about the second case? Well, he is not learned, but he has etiquettes, which shows that he is not lazy, which means he has the ability to learn. I would prefer a person who has etiquettes, common sense and understanding, and a willingness to learn. Now I come back to all of you. This is what Prabhupada said once in a particular context. I'm just quoting here in this context. The importance of etiquettes. Yes, Mahesh Prabhu, where are you? I don't see you on the screen now. Is he here? Unmute. What's your take on this verse?
Prabhuji, in this verse, we are supposed to learn that, we should have equal vision, but the characteristics, given, like one is Brahmana, another is cow, and another is dog and the dog eater, right? Okay. So basically people, a Brahmana is considered socially and with respect to knowledge very high, and is very sacred. Similarly, a cow is very holy. Whereas if you go down from a human, we are going to animal, among animals, cow.
So we discuss that as modes: Sattva Guna, Rajaguna, Tamaguna. So what's the point you're coming to?
So a learned person would have an equal vision to see all of them equally in terms of their souls, but then he will definitely distinguish them.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's not that the lion and human both are so I go and embrace a lion. That's the point you're coming to.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So, any other attempts? Shashwat Prabhu? I gave a story also to give you a clue. And it's interesting, Lord Shri Krishna highlights that. Unmute.
Yes, Hare Krishna. Prabhu, a person who is educated, he become Vinaya, he become humble, sober.
Yeah, not that person who is educated becomes like that. Okay, so the point here is, if you pay attention to the Sanskrit, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. Actually, what we are discussing so far is Vidya Sampanne. What we are discussing so far is Vidya Sampanne. To see the presence of soul is Vidya. But what Lord Shri Krishna says? Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. What is Vinaya? Is humility. An example from Srimad Bhagavatam. Nobody could be as learned as Brahmaharshanji. He's a great, great learned personality, direct disciple of Srila Sukdev Goswami. But he was Vidya Sampanne. But when Balaramji came, he did not find him as Vinaya Sampanne. Are you getting this point? So the knowledge, the spiritual knowledge has no value if you don't cultivate etiquettes. Therefore, we have 10 offenses in chanting the holy names of the Lord. The first of the, large part of offenses is not to commit blasphemy, either to the devotees, towards the scriptures, not to deceive the spiritual master. These are etiquettes, isn't it? So here also Krishna said, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. Therefore, it is said, the tree which has fruits is always bent. The tree that does not have fruit stands erect. That is called as arrogance. So what is the test of knowledge? The test of knowledge is not how much you know. The test of knowledge is how much cultured you are. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is cultural engineering. We also have to have some aspect, understanding of cultural things here. All right, this making sense? Okay, text number 19. Iheva terjitha sargo yesham samye stitam manaha nirdosham hi samam brahma tasmad brahmani te stita. So who can be situated in transcendence? This is what the verse talks about. Iheva terjitha sargo. Jita means who has won over, who has got victory over sarga. Sarga is creation and destruction, which means birth and death. Yesham samye sitam manaha. And the mind has become in equilibrium or equanimity. Nirdosham, flawless. Tasmad brahmanihi stha. Such a person, therefore, is said to be situated in transcendence. Those whose minds established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman. They are already situated in Brahman like that. And then text number 20. What are the characteristics of one who has attained Brahman? That is the discussion in verse number 20. Na pahasyat priyam prapya, no dvijit prapya cha priyam. Stira buddhira samuddho brahma vid brahmani sita. Naha prahasyat. Na means not, prahasya means rejoices. Priyam prapya. When he gets what he wants. So he does not rejoices in his victory or in his desires getting fulfilled. These are the characteristics. Sukhe dukhe samay kritva or brahma bhuta prasanatma na sochiti na kankshiti. This is again and again differently presented with the same concept. No dvijit prapya chapriyam na udvijit means does not become agitated. Prapya, when he gets, cha apriyam, which is not desirable. It does not become agitated. Stira buddhir asumuddho. He has a fixed intelligence, asumuddho, which means his intelligence does not get bewildered. Brahmavid, one who knows Brahman, Brahmani sitaha. Such a person is said to be situated in transcendence. So what are the characteristics of the person who is situated in transcendence? He does not rejoices when his desires are fulfilled. He does not complain when he receives unpleasant things. He knows the Supreme Personality Godhead. Everything happens by the will of the Lord. Does not complain. He is in equilibrium. That is a point which is mentioned here. The symptoms of self-realized person. So text number 21. So these were the symptoms of self-realized person. So question comes, the nature of the soul is Satchitananda. So we are saying, Krishna is saying he does not rejoices, he does not complains. So where does he find his happiness? And what does he find his happiness? And that is what has been described in text number 21. Bhayaspasyeshu saktatma. Bhayaspash, asaktatma. he has become detached from the external things. Bhaya spash means sense objects, interaction with the sense objects, which means no interest in watching movies, no interest in India-Pakistan cricket match. I mean, for Indians it may have, so that's what I'm saying. Bhaya spash asakta atma. Vindati atmani sukham. Vindati, he enjoys. Where? Within himself. Sa brahma yoga yuktatma. Brahma yoga yuktatma. He is connected with the Supreme Lord, because of which he rejoices. He gets that inner happiness. Sukham, he gets happiness. What kind of happiness? Akshayam. Shaya means temporary. Akshaya means unlimited. Sukham akshayam ashnute. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always entranced, enjoys the pleasure within. In this way, the selfless person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. Very, very important purport, where Srila Prabhupada quotes about Yamunacharya. So, question can come, is there any example of a person who has become totally detached from external sense pleasures? And who can be a better example from Yamunacharya, who was attached. At one point in time, he was serving as a king, and he had a lot of relationships, just like the kings will have facility for sense enjoyment. And then that Yamunacharya says, Prabhupada writes in the purport, Yadavadhimam cheta Krishna padara vindi nava navarastham niyadyatam rantumasit tadavadhi vadanari sangame smaryamane bhavati mukha vikhara shushtu nishti vanam cha. So Srimad Bhagavatam tells us the highest material pleasure in this world is sex life. And Yamunacharya, having all kinds of experience now, he says, at the thought of sex life, my face or my tongue or my lips curl with a distaste. I like distasteful. So why? Because now I have become attached to the lotus feet of Lord Hari. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, the highest pleasure in terms of matter is sex pleasure. The whole world is moving under his spell, and a materialist cannot work at all without this motivation. But a person in Krishna consciousness can work with greater vigor without sex pleasure, which he avoids. That is the test in spiritual realization. Very important. You can mark as a golden line. Spiritual realization and sex pleasures go ill together. A Krishna conscious person is not attracted to any kind of sense pleasure due to his being a liberated soul. Text number 22. How come the liberated person, or what is the understanding of a liberated person? You know, how does he see, let's say, the highest pleasure in this world, the sex pleasure? What's his understanding? So Prabhupada quoted Yamunacharya. Similar verse comes now in Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Shri Krishna speaks the 22nd verse. Yehi samsparsh jabhoga. Yehi samsparsh. The touch, jabhoga, of what? The sense objects. What happened when you touch the sense objects? Dukha yoni evate. You give birth. What give birth? You give birth to misery. Dukha yoni evate. Certainly, what will take birth is misery. Why? Adiyantavanta kaunteya. It has a beginning, has an end. Therefore, nate shuramate buddha. Therefore, buddha, the intelligent person, does not ramate, does not rejoices or enjoys sense pleasures. Ramate. So where does he get his pleasure? Prabhupada gives a very beautiful definition of word Ram or Ramate in the purport. Ramante yogino nante satyanam chidatmani iti nama padena suparam brahma vidiyate. The mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasures from the absolute truth. And therefore the supreme absolute truth, the personality Godhead, is known as Rama. So, yehi samsparsh jabhoga dukha yoni evate. Lord Shri Krishna says, when you come in contact with sense objects, you only get misery. Anyone would like to prove this statement? Now, this is not said with one particular sense object. With any sense object, when you come in contact, it will only produce misery. Would anyone like to prove this statement? Any examples? How is it any sense pleasure for this world in that sense will only produce misery? Yes, Mother Medhavani. Then we'll come to Mother Chintamani. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I've experienced this. I used to love gulab jamuns, so I used to have as much as I wanted to have, and even I do now also. In spite of having tasted the effect of having that, either it is constipation or diarrhea, it always happens. But still, the lesson is very difficult to learn because the small time pleasure, it takes us over, even though it is prasadam. So yeah, it is. Although it may seem pleasure, it ultimately results in misery. Yeah, that's my.
Correct. I mean, it's again more of a personal experience with a philosophical statement. I need more broken down into how it can be applicable to everyone. Let's hear from Mother Chintamani. Yes, Mother.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hare
Mother.
Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji, things like alcohol, drugs, people take it in the beginning, they get a kick out of it, and they keep on increasing it to the extent that it becomes an addiction for them. And then it is very difficult to come out of it. You may come out with a medical problem. For drugs and all, they get into such very difficult life. Even for alcoholics, even if they have cirrhosis of liver and the doctor tells them don't drink, but that whatever is the thing that is told to them, somehow or other they go back to it and they bring their downfall. So this is what happens.
Okay. Now, this is very again a specific case of the bad habits, alcoholics and all that. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Mother Endu Radhika. I'm looking for more generic, which is applicable in any and every situation.
Okay, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
And Krishna gives an answer in the verse itself. Yes, Mother Endu Radhika.
Yes, Prabhuji. Our eyes, our ears, if we see something, we get attracted. We follow it, whatever we see. Then similarly, even if we hear some thing like some music or any, let's say, somebody is talking, gossiping, then we get attracted to it. Touch of nose also, smell also. If we smell something which is really not Krishna Prasadam or something which is non-vegetarian something, then we get attracted to it. Similarly, our mind also keeps moving here. It is attracted to all the sense objects and we tend to go behind it, Prabhuji.
Correct. Okay. Let's take a last comment. Anshul Prabhu. We have a lot of questions for all of you today. So I'll come back to every one of you. Please excuse me if you don't get chance for this particular question. Yes, Anshul Prabhu, unmute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dhanat Pranam. So, Prabhuji, so one is that in this verse itself, Lord Krishna says that they have a beginning and end. And if we correlate it with the Dhatu Vishan Punsa verse, then essentially increased attachment to these material pleasures will lead to increased lust for them, which will either transpire into like if they are satisfied, it will lead to more lust, and if they are not satisfied, then it will lead to anger, like either greed or anger. So so ultimately there is going to be a situation wherein they are not going to be satisfied anymore, and will lead to anger and frustration. So
okay, go ahead.
So like because they have an end, they are going to ultimately lead to anger or frustration. So therefore, one would like to indulge in something which is transcendental, like eternal, rather than something which has an end.
Prabhupada in the end of the purport writes another very golden line. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. Prabhupada specifically says material miseries. Yes, Prabhuji, go ahead. I was wondering, where are you? I didn't see you so far.
I'm sorry, I have joined late because I was in a samskara. My grandson's first year, 1
Oh,
year today.
okay.
So that samskara, Vedic samskara. So I was in that.
Correct.
And I've just come out of it to attend to this meeting. If something is going on still inside there. But your lectures are equally important for me. So I come for this. Okay. So giving an example, I got a practical example for this. I have a friend, I still consider him a friend. We passed out our school together. Then somehow or the other, he got hooked to this, brilliant guy he was, but he got hooked to drugs. And after getting hooked to drugs, he has not been able to give up now. And now he is totally into it, and not only is totally into it, but he becomes violent also if he is not getting anything. So coming to this point, how he has got entrapped totally into it, and he's not able to get out of it. And coming from a very good family guy, but this is what I thought of an example.
Correct.
This is a real entrapment I'm talking of. Where if he doesn't, he becomes so violent, and we have seen him violent also, And even if we meet him, if we have to give him some money, otherwise we do not know how he will harm us also.
Correct. So this is, thank you, Prabhuji. So it's interesting, we have psychology. Similarly, there's a psychology of material happiness, which I would like to a little bit touch upon it. Let me just quote it, and then we'll come to it. We'll come back to this thing later on a little bit. So this is the verse we kind of read, right?
Very
nice to meet you again.
Okay. So this is the verse we were kind of talking about it. Let me just give an example, and then I'll give you the psychology of material happiness, how it functions. So all of you said really correct. That's totally correct. And let me just give you a very simple example, which I often quote in this regard. Let's take an example, just like Mother Medhavani was saying. Imagine hypothetically for all of you, gulab jamun is your favorite sweet. Now, how many of you remember when you see for today's prashadam is gulab jamun, suddenly the saliva begins to build in your mouth. Yes, my favorite sweet is there. And then you're sitting in prasadam line, serving is happening, and then devotee is serving, and he serves you one piece. Although your mind is yelling for it, comes from do tin to dal. Only one piece. And then you get one piece, and so accidentally, friend sitting next to you get two pieces. How many of you say your mind will be too agitated? Arey, mera favorite sweet, only one to me, and you give two pieces to the other person? So in the first piece you are eating, you're disturbed. Why? Because your mind is looking at the plates of others, what others are getting. And why did this fellow give me only one piece? So Tika is your favorite sweet, you get it. Somehow, let's give a benefit of doubt to the server. He forgot. He comes back, he gives you a second sweet. And you're like, finally my quota. But second gulab jamun is also like, okay, I want more. He gives you another serving. He comes and gives you two more sweets, two more pieces. It becomes 4. Great. Now he comes back again and he gives you 4 more pieces. Now you're saying, Prabhu, no. Why only me? You should worry about other devotees also. They should also get enough rasgulla. Only me, no. Now there is a change of perception, Now you're wondering about others will get it or not. The first time that was not the thought process. Now you get 4 more gulab jamun and you're like, okay, bhai, bahut ho gaya. 8 gulab jamun kha liye. And the person comes back, no, Prabhu, I know this is your favorite sweet. I'm going to give you 4 more. And you're like, Prabhu, this is enough for me today. Enough, please. No, Prabhu, you have come after so long. Please take it. Take 4 more. He gives you. Now, when you got the first gulab jamun, you were so excited. Now, when you got your 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th piece, you are in stress. You are in anxiety. And somehow you're sitting with your plate. Everyone have got up from the prasadam area. You're only sitting with your plate and slowly you're chewing and you're waiting till the time the other get digested. And you're going through the process. Imagine the devotee comes back again and now puts 10 more pieces of gulab jamun in your plate. How many of you say you're going to scream? Are you going crazy? How many I'm going to get? I don't want anything. Do you acknowledge? Yes or no? So this is what means by Adi Antavanta. Has a beginning, has an end. What is the psychology of this material happiness? This is the psychology of material happiness. I'll give you a very gross example. Please pay attention to the statement. When we see a sense object, we become agitated and excited. Just like this devotee who entered the prasadam hall and he got to know, wow, gulab jamun. He was agitated and excited. But actually, it is only an imagined happiness. And what is this imagined happiness? It is nothing but an intense expectation of satisfaction that never comes. Let me give another example. Imagine your company has approved your application to send you to America. And you have been longing to go to America for a while, and now your application has been approved. How many of you think the moment you get this call from your manager, or the moment you get confirmation, to America ja rahe hai, how many will say, or how many will truly will say, you will go into a daydreaming? Oh, America, Niagara Falls, the casinos at Las Vegas, and the what to speak of the Hollywood city, the Chicago lake, and you're sitting in your office and going and daydreaming, right? This is called as intense expectation of satisfaction. But there is a very important line that comes, that never comes. In this point of time in your mind, you have built up so many stories that you forgot that there is so much hard work. You have not yet got visa. You go stand in a visa line. Imagine if you get your visa in the first shot, you got a ticket also, and you end up in America. The company is not sending you on a paid vacation. Company is sending you for work. But the moment you got a call, you forgot that you're going for work. Your mind is yelling, I'm going to go here and I'm going to go there. I lived in America. I didn't go to any of these places, frankly speaking. But there was never a time, although there was this whole sense of desire that I'll visit here and there. So mine, Jesus like that. And what happens? One remains perpetually frustrated in material existence. And the more one tries to enjoy, the more one's frustration increases. Because it is all about daydreaming. He thinks, I will get pleasure from this. Ultimately, there's no pleasure. There is only a dream in the mind, which he thinks, if I do this, I'll get it. So it is just a gimmick of mind. We keep on thinking, and that keeps on, secreting those whatever, the hormones and whatnot, which gives us a kick within. The sense object in itself does not have any pleasure. Is that a little bit making a little sense here? The psychology of this? It is an intense expectation that is created within a mind, which never gets fulfilled. And therefore, whoever is trying to fulfill their desires, or trying to find happiness in this world, everyone remains frustrated. That's the point here. Well, we are discussing on this. Why don't I go on the presentation? Let's take a question again. Let's consider a counseling scenario. Okay, this is my question to all of you. Somebody tells you, Prabhuji, Mataji, I know I'm suffering and understand sense gratification brings misery, but I'm helpless to my conditionings. I can't rise above my situation. Please help. What guidance can you offer to such a person? This is a very practical question. Let's hear answers for some of you. Okay, let me have a question on the screen for all of you. A counselor, a student, or a friend of yours comes to you, says, oh, I know I'm suffering and I understand this sense gratification is not good for me. It only brings misery. But what do I do? I'm conditioned. I can't rise above my situation. Please help. Yes, Prabhu, unmute. Go ahead.
Prabhuji, this is something which most of us was experience. And it's not which will go away in one day, but we have to take practically small steps, wherein first we try to add the positive things, and slowly the negative things will get subdued, or they will slowly go away. That's one thing. Second thing is we consciously also make attempt whenever we feel the urge to gratify our senses to limit it to a certain extent, and gradually with the addition of positive things, it will get subdued and go over. But yeah, I mean, it may come again. So good sadhana and consistent association is the key here. I'm
wonderful.
Suffering from many of the things. But, yeah.
So if I get 3 points are highlighted, correct me if I fail to repeat it. First of all, this is a situation for everyone. This is called as kind of a self-discovery to know that this is a problem. And we have to take some practical steps. How? Step by step. So we have to have some positive engagements, which gradually replaces it. And how to make it really complete? A good sadhana and good association. Is that what you precisely said, right? The good 3-step formula. Thank you. Venuvardhan Prabhuji, please go ahead. What's your tips? Unmute, please. Yes.
Yeah. Prabhu, actually, this is whatever we are doing, if we are doing for ourselves. So it is giving the.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, Prabhuji. Can hear you.
Yeah, actually, this is only, as Prabhu said, it is practice and other things. So if you are tasting better than this, and you can change over to that one. That means if you are doing any help to the other people, or you are doing any other services to help to the other people, so it will give you satisfaction and happiness. That means whatever you are doing now, if you are doing better than that, and you will get the satisfaction. So you have to do like that. That's just like chanting Hare Krishna mantra. So gradually you will get that taste, and you will go for that one, and gradually you will forget all the miseries, whatever it is there, and you will come out from that one.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Venuvardhan Prabhuji. Anyone else would like to share some insights into it? As I said, today I'm going to ask a lot of questions to all of you. So I'm kind of, that way we are going through this discussion. Yes, Mother Rati Manjari.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mother, can hear you.
Praying intensely to the Lord
Okay.
to bestow mercy upon the soul and his conditioning.
Okay.
Thank you.
So prayers can help. Correct. Yes, Prabhuji, go ahead. Unmute.
Yeah. So it is basically Sangha, which is very important, So once one gets into that good Sangha, so if someone is struggling like this, the best solution could be Sangha. In a good Sangha, it's very difficult to practice your bad habits. So you will be forced to give it up. And in the sadhu sangha, what happens is then we are also engaged in devotional service, and that really starts making a change in our mind, because we have started getting a higher taste. So gradually the change takes place in us, even without our own knowledge. And
correct.
Get into. So sangha is very, very important.
Sangha, correct. Thank you, Prabhuji. Ramesh Prabhu and Chaitanya Bhagwan Prabhu, and then we'll move forward from here. Yes, Ramesh Prabhu, unmute.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanavad Pranams. I'm quoting back to the same sloka where we please help means, because the situations are not permanent. They have a beginning and an end. So they not become completely permanent throughout your life, the conditioning and the miseries. And one day they will go, and then you will have happiness. So there are dualities. Misery, happiness, day and night, and heat and cold, and all those things. So it is not a permanent situation. Sorry,
Hare Krishna. I somehow got muted. Ramesh, you were saying something more.
Oh no, you got muted, so I can't hear you. That's
yeah, I don't know how I got muted. Chaitanya Bhagwan Prabhu, please go ahead.
Yeah, Prabhu, like as this person is saying that I know I am suffering, probably his knowing is very superficial, means it is not a
very good.
Assimilated. So more we hear, probably then it will get assimilated, then we prevent from doing such things. Probably.
Correct. So this is a little my take. All of you have said right answers. What I would say, first of all, who owns the problem? That person has to thoroughly identify and understand it. It is your problem. Just like Prabhupada will say, when you go to a doctor, doctor gives you a diet regimen, that the patient has to follow it. So a person who's going through this situation has to take a responsibility of life. You can give how much ever association you want to give, which is needed, no doubt about it, which should be given. But unless a person takes responsibility of life, nothing is going to change for that person. Such a person, there are examples who were people in the association of Srila Prabhupada. At one point of time in the beginning years, one was Prabhupada's personal assistant, personal servant actually. He left. So in this kind of situation, I was just kind of added this question just to have some discussion. Take would be to understand who owns the problem, owns the responsibility. At our end, as friends to this person, to this individual, we can give a best of advice, best of association and everything. But if a person does not take advantage of it, does not follow the ABCD formula, does not chant sincerely, the things will not change. So, all right, let's move forward with the discussion. So here we have some more points to discuss. We'll come back. Now, the question comes. Why I raise this question? Because something similar to this is being discussed in the follow-up verses. So Lord Shri Krishna says, prior to this, text number 21, who's detached from the external happiness, who finds joy within. But this is theory. How do we do it in practice? At our stage, that's not possible. We all have challenges. So now Lord Shri Krishna begins to speak about from text number 23. So far, we have got a knowledge that sense objects, being in touch with sense objects is going to be a painful experience. But the knowledge in itself is not strength. It does not have a strength in itself to get into an action. So now text number 23 onwards, Krishna says, take responsibility of your life. And you have to practice control of your mind and senses. You have to learn to tolerate. This is where I brought in this question to just have a little bit discussion about, who owns the problem? It is I. It is my problem. Then I need to practice tolerance. Text number 23. Let's take a look. What Krishna says. Shaknoti eva yah shodham prak sharira vimokshanat kama krodh udbhavam vegam sa yukta sa sukhi naraha. Shaknoti iheva yah shodham. Shodham means to tolerate. Shaknoti iheva. Shaknoti means Shakti. Shakti, who is able to. Shaknoti iheva. Within this body, who is able to do what? Tolerate. Prak sharira vimokshanat. Before vimokshanat, before giving up this body, if one is able to tolerate, what is able to tolerate? Kama krodh udbhavam vegam. Vegam, the desires such as kama, lust, desires such as anger. Of course, as Anshul Prabhu was nicely saying, when your desires are fulfilled, it turns into a greed, which is nothing but desire, and desires are not fulfilled, it turns into anger. So, kama krodh udbhavam vegam sa yuktaha sa sukhi naraha. So, one who is able to check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world. Is that making sense? So Lord is saying, take responsibility. You have to cultivate that tolerance. Now here comes my question to all of you. How to check the force of desire and anger? How to check the force of desire and anger? Any quick thoughts? Okay, by the way, I hope I'm not making too complicated to all of you by asking so many questions today. So bear with me for that. If you think, Prabhu, you speak, let us be quiet, fine, we'll go with that. Unmute. Yes, Saniji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, comparing our life with our previous, not previous life, with our past, that
see, no knowledge would work. Ajamil had all the knowledge, didn't work. Here to check, let me put this disclaimer on. Don't quote knowledge. Comparison would not work. Action. Think on the side of actions, please. Okay? So all this will not come. Ajamil was a perfect example for that. Yes, Mother Kamalika. There has to be an appropriate action. Unmute, please. Yeah, Mother. Go ahead.
Yes, we have to check whether it is anyhow related to Krishna or not.
Okay, then what? If it is not related to Krishna, then tolerate. And here comes my question. How to tolerate? Okay, then tolerate. But how to tolerate now? That's my question.
We have to be detached from it.
And how to be detached? It is not a subject matter of theory saying that I'm detached. It doesn't happen. Just by saying I'm detached from this apple, and you're holding an apple. I'm detached, and you're bringing it closer to your mouth. That doesn't work, right? Thank you. Good attempt. Mother Deepti, Madan Mohan, I believe, right? Yeah, go ahead, please.
So, Prabhu, in this scenario, we need to think that it is because of our past karma. So we have to tolerate that, and this situation will not be permanent. It is a temporary situation.
Correct.
It will eventually.
Philosophically, I do agree, Mother. This can work for a while. But our thinking is not powerful enough, does not have enough strength that it can check the forces of these urges. Therefore, I'm again reiterating the example of Ajamil. Ajamil was quoting shlokas that time to bring his mind under control. Okay. Kamalathu, you want to say something? When we grow up, where are you? I don't see you on the screen. Okay. Okay. Mother Kalpana, Mother Kishori, let's take an input from you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes,
we can take inspiration from Kunti Maharani. Like
Okay.
in spite of having so many calamities in her life, even though Krishna was with them, she still had the humility to think that whatever is happening is going to make her only go closer to Krishna. So we can cultivate that attitude of thinking
Sure.
that if we, whatever problems we are facing, it will only bring us closer to Krishna.
Now you can say, Rupa Goswami, no, Raghunath Das Goswami will drink 1 glass of buttermilk in 3 days. Let me follow that. I mean, it's good to think to begin with. How many of you had that experience before the Kartik month we take a vow? This Kartik month, no sweet. And the very next morning you get a sweet prasadam from Vrindavan. Oh, Vrindavan prasadam. And then you eat sweet prasadam and I took a vow. How many of you had that experience? So, okay, we're hitting into the right, a little bit on the wrong direction. All of you correct philosophically, but please understand, if you are hungry, for how long would you check the force of hunger? So how do we tolerate that? What I have learned with my little bit of practice, we have to learn to engage all of our senses. And I'll give you one example. Just like Prabhupada in one of the purports previously said, how do we control the urge of food or hunger? How do we control? By only eating Krishna prasadam. By only eating, not by thinking I am a yogi, I am the disciple of Raghunath Goswami, nothing. Doesn't work like that. You eat only Krishna prasadam. So how do you control the force of speaking? Speak only about Krishna Katha. Speak only about Krishna Katha. And I can promise you, the moment you have this opportunity to speak about Krishna Katha, you yourself will become a Muni. You will not feel like talking about anything. Now, before you can speak about Krishna, it is not that suddenly one day you will start speaking with Krishna. It also requires some training and effort. Only those devotees generally can speak effectively. You can say speak eloquently, clearly, systematically about Krishna, who have had the practice or have cultivated the practice of making proper notes in the class. Those only who make proper notes, their mind gets trained to learn in a certain fashion. And those devotees, when they begin to speak, who have had the habit of note making, or those who have had a bit of writing, they develop a very good ability to speak effectively. So like this, you can gauge everything. So you want to, your eyes want to see something, go to Yatra, see the beautiful temples of the Lord. You want to hear something, there are so many beautiful bhajan. Like that, the forces of senses or the urges are checked. That's a various. What you're all talking is of a Jnani Marg. I can think like this, I can do like this. I guess some of us, we have forgotten we are on Bhakti Marg. Bhakti means practical action. That is how we check the force of senses and anger. All right. So this was related to the counseling question also that I had said. This kind of combined together. Now text number 24. So how, now this is going through the verse wise. So how such a person, who Lord Shri Krishna is saying tolerate, how such a person is able to tolerate? Just saying tolerate. But what about his hunger? You can't stay hungry. So how is he able to tolerate? Text number 24 says, Krishna says, because he finds his joy within himself. He's so connected with the Supreme Lord, he doesn't need anything. Text number 24. Yo anta sukantararamas tatanta jyotirevaya sa yogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhuto digacchati anta sukho anta aramas tatha antar jyotirevaya sa yogi brahma nirvanam. So one who rejoices within himself, whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. Like that. Please, somebody read out the purport. Anyone like to read out the purport of this? Hey, Ram Krishna Prabhu, you can guide. Okay, Sunny Prabhu, go ahead. Your hand is up. Please read the purport.
Hare Krishna, unless one is able to relish happiness from within, how can one retire from the external engagements meant for deriving superficial happiness? A liberated person enjoys happiness by factual experience. He can therefore sit silently at one place and enjoy the activities of life from within. Such a liberated person no longer desires external material happiness. This state is called Brahma-bhuta, attaining which one is assured of going back to Godhead, back to home.
I remember this several years before, there was a new guy working in the IT company, living in one of the nearby societies. He started to come and he was reading Bhagavad Gita. And he was kind of one day asking me about so much juice that comes. Are you guys tell us not to have so much juice of this world, but Devtas are having so much. You understand, alcoholic beverage like that. So that was a discussion going on. So then he brought this verse to me. He said, Prabhu, जब मैं 2 पैक बैक पैपर का चढ़ा लेता हूँ, I am also in the state of a liberated person like this. I don't need anything external. I am within myself. Sitting on the chair, I find such a joy. So this is not what is being discussed here. So I don't know how to explain a drunkard about it. But here the point is, the connection with the Lord is what brings that bliss. That is what we talked about. Text number 25. Lavande Brahma Nirvanam Rishyaha Shina Kalmasha Chinna Dveda Yatatmana Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. Lavante, one who has achieved Brahma Nirvanam Rishyaha, those who are active within Shina Kalmasha, who are devoid of all sins. Chinna Dveda Yatatmana. Chinna, destroyed all the dualities, and Yatatmana, engaged in self-realization. Sarvabhuta hite rataha. Sarvabhuta hite, such a person, Sarvabhuta hite rataha, in true sense, are engaged in the welfare work of all living beings. A very, very important verse and very, very important purport. The true welfare work can only be done by the devotee of the Lord. So I was kind of reminded about the break, which I kind of forgot. So we'll have the break now. This is around 1:26, and we'll come back at around 1:26. So which means what? 1:36. So we'll have a 10 minutes break, take a break now, and we'll come back. All right? We'll pause here. We'll take this discussion ahead after the break. Yadru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Srivasadi Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavangscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatanitam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Sri Visakhanitam Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Bhagavati Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Bhagavati Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Fifth chapter, verse number 25. That's what we were discussing just before the break. Very, very important verse. Sarve Bhuta Hite Rataha. Only such a person, Sarva Bhuta, Hit, can be a well-wisher of all the living entities. Which kind of person? Labante Brahma Nirvanam, who has attained Brahma Nirvana. Rishayaha Sheena Kalmashaha. Sheena Kalmasha, who are devoid of any sinful action, reactions, or desires. Chin Dvida Yatatmana, and those who are freed from all kinds of dualities. In other words, only a devotee of the Lord can be a true well-wisher. Prabhupada gives a famous example. I believe I would have discussed here, so I will not go into the details of it. But the example is of when your friend is a billionaire and his son has been lost, and you find him on one of the days begging on a street. What will you do? Give him some Lakshmi, go away, or take care of his education, or bring him back to his father, who is the richest person in the world. In summary, this is the example. So let's read the purport. Very nice, beautiful purport. Srila Prabhupada's right here. Anyone would like to read the purports of text number 25? Madanjana, please go ahead.
Only a person who is fully in Krishna consciousness can be said to be engaged in welfare work for all living entities. When a person is actually in the knowledge that Krishna is the fountainhead of everything, then when he acts in that spirit, he acts for everyone. The sufferings of humanity are due to forgetfulness of Krishna, as the supreme enjoyer, the supreme proprietor, and the supreme friend. Therefore, to act to revive this consciousness within the entire human society is the highest welfare work. One cannot be engaged in such first-class welfare work without being liberated in the Supreme. A Krishna conscious person has no doubt about the supremacy of Krishna. He has no doubt because he is completely freed from all sins. This is the state of divine joy, divine love. A person engaged only in ministering to the physical welfare of human society cannot factually help anyone. Temporary relief of the external body and the mind is not satisfactory. The real cause of one's difficulties in the hard struggle for life may be found in one's forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Lord. When a man is fully conscious of this relationship with Krishna, he is actually a liberated soul, although he may be in the material tabernacle.
When a man is fully conscious of his relationship, he is actually liberated, is actually a liberated soul. So this is Prabhupada's purport, but going through the flow of discussion of what Krishna is saying to Arjuna, in 25th verse that we just read, Krishna said, one who had attained a stage of Brahma Nirvanam, who has attained, the transcendence. So text number 26 addresses or speaks about when can I attain that state of transcendence? When is it possible? Although Prabhupada and the purport have already said, when one is fully conscious of his relationship with Krishna. That's Prabhupada's purport, but through the flow of discussion is now 26th verse, 25th verse, Brahma Nirvanam. So now 26th verse, when can a person attain Brahma Nirvanam? Kama krodho vimuktanam yatinam yatachetasam abhito Brahma Nirvanam vartate viditatmanam. Kama krodha vimuktanam, free from desires and anger. Vimuktanam, of those who are liberated. Yatinam yatachetasam, of the saintly persons. Yatachetasam, who have full control of mind and senses. Abhito Brahma Nirvanam, in a very near future, they will attain Brahma Nirvanam. Mother Leela Nandini, please read the translation.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. Hare
So
Krishna.
question comes, because there is a little bit of discussion parallelly going on about Jnani and Bhakta. And Lord Shri Krishna in this chapter is saying the position of Bhakta is far much more secure. So similarly in Prabhupada and the purport says, when would a devotee attain that state? Please read the second paragraph in the purport. In the conditioned soul, the desire to enjoy.
The conditioned soul, the desire to enjoy the fruity results of work is so deep-rooted that it is very difficult even for the great sages to control such desires despite great endeavors. A devotee of the Lord, constantly engaged in devotional service in Krishna consciousness, perfect in self-realization, very quickly attains liberation in the Supreme. Owing to his complete knowledge in self-realization, he always remains in trance. To cite an analogous example of this, Darshana Dhyana Samasparsed Matsya Kurma Vihanagamaham Svane Apatyani Pushnadi Tadaham Abhipatmaja. By vision, by meditation, and by touch, only do the fish, the tortoise, and the birds maintain their offspring. Similarly, do I also, O Patmaja.
So, how does devotee attains it? By always thinking about the Lord, by always serving the Lord. Again, when we had asked a question before the break, most of the answers were about thinking. That is Jnani Marg. That's the point I just wanted to highlight. Ours is not a Jnani Marg, ours is an action mark. Bhakti means, Prabhupada writes in first canto, Bhakti means practical action. There should be some action. So here is about thinking, and that thinking begins with or is accompanied with an factual devotional activity. Now, after having this much discussion, so what is happening here is Nishkama Karma Yoga purifies you, brings you to the stage of jnana. And from that stage of jnana, you can attain moksha. This is what is happening in the last few verses. Jnana, that is what is discussed. Labante Brahma Nirvanam. When you have this knowledge, this is what is being discussed in the last few verses. And then, what happened? Is my Zoom working? Yeah, Zoom is working. Okay, you need to click there. Hare Krishna, just a second. Hare Krishna, a little technical glitch. So, from Nishkama Karma Yoga, person comes to the stage of Jnana Yoga, firmly fixed in transcendence, and from there you can attain moksha. Now, verse number 27 onwards, the last 3 verses of this chapter, Lord Shri Krishna says, Arjuna, higher than Jnana Yoga stages, Ashtang Yoga. So, from Jnana Yoga you can attain moksha, or else from Ashtang Yoga. So, higher than Jnana Yoga stages, Ashtang Yoga, about which Lord Shri Krishna will discuss in the 6th chapter. And here just Krishna is going to briefly touch upon 27-28 verse about Ashtanga Yoga. And then again in 6th chapter, Lord Shri Krishna, after describing in detail about Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, then again Lord Shri Krishna will say, well, Bhakti Yoga is easier. You should perform Bhakti Yoga. Like that, this discussion of Yoga ladder. So, Yoga ladder, I had given you a prelude last time, but in detail we'll discuss when we begin our 6th chapter. So, text number 27-28. Madhurati Manjari, your hand is up. Please read the translation. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, I'm audible?
Yes.
Translation. Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the 2 eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence, the transcendentalist aiming at liberation becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Anyone wants to try it out? Sit in this yoga position, focus between your eyebrows. After a few minutes, you'll have a headache when you begin to practice this. Okay, please read the 2nd paragraph of this purport. Purport gives a beautiful summary. After explaining the above principles, unmute.
Hare Krishna. After explaining the above principles of liberation in the Supreme, the Lord gives instruction to Arjuna as to how one can come to that position by the practice of the mysticism or yoga known as Ashtang Yoga, which is divisible into an 8-fold procedure called Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. In the 6th chapter, the subject of yoga is explicitly detailed, and at the end of the 5th, it is only preliminarily explained. One has to drive out the sense objects such as sound, touch, form, taste, and smell by the Pratyahara process in yoga, and then keep the vision of the eyes between the 2 eyebrows and concentrate on the tip of the nose with half-closed lids. There is no benefit in closing the eyes altogether, because then there is every chance of falling asleep. Nor is there benefit in opening the eyes completely, because then there is the hazard of being attracted by sense objects. The breathing movement is restrained within the nostrils by neutralizing the up-moving and down-moving air within the body. By practice of such yoga, one is able to gain control over the senses, refrain from outward sense objects, and thus prepare oneself for liberation in the Supreme. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Read the next paragraph also, the last paragraph.
Yes, please. This yoga process helps one become free from all kinds of fear and anger, and thus feel the presence of the supersoul in the transcendental situation. In other words, Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of executing yoga principles.
So Prabhupada have given the verdict what Krishna is going to give in the 6th chapter. In case if you miss out understanding 6th chapter verses, here only. What is Krishna consciousness? Please go ahead.
This will be thoroughly explained in the next chapter. A Krishna conscious person, however, being always engaged in devotional service, does not risk losing his senses to some other engagement. This is a better way of controlling the senses than by the Ashtanga Yoga.
If any one of you still think there is some possibility of people to practice Ashtanga Yoga, we'll check that out in the next session, when we'll see what exactly what happens in Ashtanga Yoga. All right. So in the 5th chapter, we are coming to the last verse. If you don't remember anything, but at least remember these 4 things. The 5th chapter discusses 4 main subject matters. 1, Nishkam Karma Yoga, the essentials of Nishkam Karma Yoga. Second, the vision. The second is the 3 doers concept. Third, the vision of spiritualist, Vidya Vinaya Sampane. And the 4th subject matter is peace formula, which is the 5th, which is the last verse. So what is this peace formula means? Let's take a look at it. So we come into this world. Why Lord Shri Krishna is talking about peace formula? Does it mean there is no peace in my life or in this world? Yes, that's correct. Why there is no peace? We come into this world with nothing. We leave with nothing. In the interim, our claims to proprietorships, attachments to various objects create fear, insecurity, and conflict. We all agree with that? Our attachments, we came with nothing, we go with nothing. In the interim, we become attached to so many things which are temporary, which leads to fear, insecurity, and conflict. Therefore, there is no peace. We forget change is a constant theme in this world. Our relationships are changing. The environment is changing. Our possessions are changing. And our desires are also changing, depending on we are in the association of devotees or not, evolving or devolving. Now, to the extent we develop a sense of detachment, understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be the proprietor, to be understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be the proprietor, and ourselves as simply a caretaker, just like an example of a cashier. To that extent, we can experience a peace within. When can we experience peace within? When we understand we are a caretaker. We are not the proprietor. Unless there is peace within, there cannot be a global peace. There is so much demand, there is so much ruckus, chaos about the need for global peace. But unless there is an inner peace, there cannot be a global peace. Bhagavad Gita trains up a community of individuals who are free of attachment, envy, greed, and anger. And this is what is the greatest requirement in the world today. Therefore, Prabhupada, this particular verse that we're going to read today, called it as a peace formula. That's one of the essential messages of Bhagavad Gita in terms of the need of the hour today. Let's take a look at the verse. Lord Shri Krishna says, Bhoktaram yagana tapasam sarva loka maheshwaram suhidam sarva bhutanam jnanatvamam shanti mrachati. Let's take a look at each of this line and we'll see the world is fighting because of these things, understanding it to be as if it belongs to them. First thing, Bhoktaram yagna tapasam. Yagna means sacrifice, which means to give charity. Charity of your possessions. Krishna says, I am the enjoyer of what all belongs to you. How many of you agree people are fighting over things? Who is the real enjoyer of all that? Krishna says, I. Bhoktaram yagna tapasam. Sarvaloka maheshwaram. I am the Ishvara, Maha Ishvara of all the lokas, which means of all the lands. How many of you agree people are fighting over land? This is my property. This is my demarcation. You're crossing into my land. And then Suidam Sarvabhutanam. Suidam Sarvabhutanam. Sarvabhutanam is all living entities. Suhidam, I am the well-wisher benefactor. In other words, I am the Lord who provides and maintains everyone. And the third fight which is going on in this world is on the subject of God. My God is better than your God. And Krishna says, I am the only God. So three things, Bhoktaram Yakatapasam, the fight over possessions, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, fight over land, Sudham Sarvabhutanam, fight over God. Jnanatvam Shanti Machati. When one understands Krishna is Bhoktaram, Krishna Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, and Krishna is Suhridam for all, such a person attains peace. And that is the subject matter. A person in full consciousness, for me, knowing to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices, austerity, supreme lord of all planets, demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material misery. The peace formula. Beneficiary of all sacrifices. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, no one is greater than him. Prabhupada writes in the purport. Benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities. Concluding our 5th chapter with the last paragraph, Prabhupada writes in the purport. The 5th chapter is a practical explanation of Krishna consciousness, generally known as Karma Yoga. The question of mental speculation as to how Karma Yoga can give liberation is answered herewith. To work in Krishna consciousness is to work with the complete knowledge of the Lord as the predominator. Such work is not different from transcendental knowledge. Direct Krishna consciousness is Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga is a path leading to Bhakti Yoga. Krishna consciousness means to work, not only to think, and full knowledge of one's relationship with the Supreme Absolute. And the perfection of this consciousness is full knowledge of Krishna. A pure soul is the eternal servant of God as his fragmental part and parcel. He comes in contact with Maya due to the desire to lord it over Maya, and that is the cause of many sufferings. As long as he is in contact with matter, he has to execute work in terms of material necessities. I hope all of you are going through the pages of Bhagavad Gita. You're reading the last paragraph, last verse. Krishna consciousness, however, brings one into a spiritual life even while one is within the jurisdiction of matter. For it is an arousing of spiritual existence by practice in the material world. The more one is advanced, the more he is freed from the clutches of matter. The Lord is not partial toward anyone. Everything depends on one's practical performances of duties in Krishna consciousness, which helps one control the senses in every respect and conquer the influence of desire and anger. This is what we were discussing before. How do you control the urges of desire and anger? Purpose says, depends on one's practical performance of duties in Krishna consciousness. It's about action. One who stands fast in Krishna consciousness, controlling the above-mentioned passions, remains factually in the transcendental stage. The eightfold yoga mysticism is automatically practiced in Krishna consciousness. How this yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi is practiced, that we'll discuss next time. There's a gradual process of elevation in the practice of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. But these only preface perfection by devotional service, which alone can award peace to the human being. It is the highest perfection of life. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 5th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita and the matter of Karma Yoga or action in Krishna consciousness. Once again, 5th chapter, there are 4 very important vital subject matter. One is about Nishkam Karma Yoga, how to practice Nishkam Karma Yoga. Then, who is the controller, who is the doer, 3 doers concept. What is the vision of a transcendentalist? Sees everyone with equal vision. And the 4th, the peace formula. But the means, the knowledge by which one can attain peace. And that is to understand Lord is the Bhoktaram, Lord is the Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, and Lord is the Suhridam. Jnanatvamam Shanti Machati. With this, we pause for today's discussion. Next week when we meet, we'll continue our discussion with the 6th chapter. We'll have 2 more sessions to cover up the 6th chapter. There are 47 verses, and we'll take that. So now Krishna will speak in the 6th chapter about attaining liberation through the process of Ashtang Yoga. And once again, Krishna will come back, but Bhakti is better. It's very difficult, Arjuna. It's not possible to perform in the current day and time. And therefore, Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita 6th chapter himself says, Chanchalam mana Krishna pramati ballavadadam tasyaham nigraham manne vayuriva sadushkramam. My dear Lord, how can we control our mind? I can control the raging wind, but I cannot control my mind. And you're asking me to go to the forest, practice this and that. That's just not possible. And then Krishna says, yes, you are correct. Abhyasena tu kante vairagya cha grihate. And the discussion happens like that. We'll see that next week. With that, thank you all for your kind attention, being part of this session today. So for the remaining point of time, there are two things we're going to do. Any question answers, if anyone has, we'll take that. And after that, I'll briefly discuss about the OBA, how to write open book assignment, and a little bit about closed book examination. And in case if you have any questions on that, we'll take that. So, but before that, we'll take some questions only limited to the session. And when that is over, then we'll come to your about exam. Okay. So we do have some hand from Mother Priya and Jaya Prabhu. Yes, Mother Priya, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So Prabhu, we were talking about controlling our desires and angers. So sometimes we feel that desire, we still get time to contemplate, because it's something even long term, short term, we get an hour, a day or two to contemplate or discuss with our mentors. But anger is something which something happens, and it happens then and there most of the time. And sometimes we get the feeling, why should we tolerate like that? So how can we handle that thing?
See, when there is already an outburst, handling that is too late. When you're already, your consciousness has stooped into passion ignorance, to bring it out, particularly, therefore, when there is a situation where you're meeting with an angry person, it's better to remain calm. Because if you burst out, then it's just going to flare it up, because it does not subside it. Now, it's better to prepare ourselves before the crisis hit us, which means we should try our best not to get into that situation. Now, there could be n number of factors why people become angry, or let's say why I become angry. So if you see, well, some of the reasons is I've not been respected properly, or else our priorities, our perceptions have not been valued by the other person. For example, somebody may have a way of thinking that time is very important for me, and maybe the other person have not kept punctuality. In other words, he committed to come at 3 o'clock and he comes 3:30. Such a person is going to become angry. So there could be n number of reasons for a person to become angry. So how I take a look at the subject matter of anger is, becoming angry is like burning up your spiritual assets. And it does not help anyone. And in fact, only causes destruction. So if it is towards a student and it is essential for the well-being and the spiritual growth for the student, then you can express that in a way which is appropriate in that situation. But if it is towards somebody who is not your student, why I'm making a point towards a student? Because the relationship gives a certain amount of right where you can chastise. But the right to chastise and correct is not given in any other relationship except for a student. In any other relationship, it will become into a Vaishnava offense or a pradh. So we have to see what is to be done, not to be done. Of course, our action, day-to-day action that we perform would be entirely, at the end of the day, will be based on the maturity that we have gained, not just based on our theoretical knowledge. Last but not the least, I would still like to reiterate and make a point. It does not matter if we commit a mistake. If we have become angry, we should not become hopeless. And scriptures are filled with examples of that. Dashrath Maharaj, the son of a father of Ram, he represents two qualities. If you just briefly think about his character: attachment and obsession. He was attached with Ram and obsessed with Kekai. Therefore, he could not say no to Kekai, and he could not give up his attachment to Lord Ram. But that Supreme Personality Godhead never ever criticized his father. See how he sent me away. The point I'm trying to make is, even Dashrath Maharaj, being the father of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who was so attached to Lord Ram, even he could make a mistake. Therefore, in the first canto and again in the second canto and the third canto also, Prabhupada makes this very profound statement. The nature of the material world is such, even the transcendentalist sometimes become a victim. And this is Prabhupada quotes in connection to Parikshit Maharaj. To see how he made a mistake of putting a snake on the shoulder of Samika Rishi. So I'm trying to give you the overall perspective. Our responses, how we deal, how we control our desire, anger, lot of that depends on our sadhana. Lot of that depends on our etiquettes that we're cultivating, how we are building our relationship with Vaishnavas, and of course, among all these things, common sense should not be missed out. You know, a certain amount of common sense is needed. Now, when we do a mistake, when we do a blunder, we should not become hopeless. Bhakti, there is nothing called as hopeless. Yudhishthira Maharaj, who is known as Dharamraj, if he can put his wife on bet, how can Dharamraj make a mistake like this? Bhrigumani, the one who was selected by all the sages in the assembly to go and find out who is the best among Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. When Daksha began to criticize Lord Shiva in that assembly, which is fourth canto talks about it, Bhrigumani got contaminated. He cursed all the followers of Lord Shiva. So this is what material nature is. Things goes up and down, but we remain steadfast. And there is no shortcut. There is no one-line answer how to deal with anger, which is a difficult situation actually. You know, Prabhupada writes in NOI text 1, anger cannot be controlled, anger can be dovetailed. Like Hanumanji used towards non-devotees. Arjuna used towards Kauravas. So it cannot be controlled, but has to be engaged towards non-devotees, particularly anger. You know? So, because you asked for anger, therefore I kind of gave you a little bit of picture over here. Fine. All right, Mother?
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu.
Good to hear from a UK batch after a long time. I was wondering where is the UK batch had gone. Nobody seemed to be. Of course, Venuvardhan Prabhu has been a little active. Where are other congregation from UK? I don't even see them around on the screen. I don't know if they're on the screen actually. Oh yeah, Mother Satya. We haven't heard Satya Vachan from you for a long time. Not participating only. Where are other mothers also? Fine. Anything else, Mother Priya?
One more, yes, Prabhu, just one more question. So in the last lecture, we discussed about the yoga ladder, right? Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga.
That was just briefly. We'll discuss elaborately next time.
Yes, but I just have, whenever I study Bhagavad Gita, I just have one key doubt. What is the difference between Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga?
See, that's what would be mentioned ahead also. Through the purpose of Srila Prabhupada, there is no difference between Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, particularly Nishkam Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. Now, technically, there is a difference which will be elaborated in the 12th chapter, verse number 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Bhakti Yoga means everything is surrendered to the Lord. Tell me it's just like, yes, sir. Whatever you say, I shall do it. Fully surrender. Sarva Dharman Pratyaya. That's the highest stage. Now, Karma Yoga is also Bhakti Yoga in the sadhana stage. What is sadhana stage? You are told, do this. So, Karma Yoga is, you're told to engage your senses in the service of the Lord. So, Karma means we cannot give up Karmatmakam Buddhi. I have to act. Now you act for the pleasure of Krishna. How you act for the pleasure of Krishna? No problem. Whatever work you do, do it. You can use the result of that work in the service of the Lord. If you're more advanced, then you can give up that thing also and then work for Krishna. Prabhupada will explain this point with examples in that 12.8 to 12. You can read it out for yourself. You can take up a service in the temple and let temple maintain your well-being. That is more. So temple decides what service to be done and temple gives you for your maintenance. That is fully surrender. The Nishkam Karma Yoga. Like that at sadhaka stage. A little more difference would be clear when we discuss at 12.8 to 12. You can read it out at your leisure.
Okay.
Eighth is 12.8. Eighth verse represent particularly Bhakti Yoga, where person with his mind fully, man mana bhava madbhakta madhyajamam namaskaram. But at sadhaka stage, we are also practicing bhakti through the principles of Nishkam Karma Yoga or Sakam Karma Yoga, whatever platform we are in. Okay?
Okay, sure. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhu. Boliye. Hare Krishna. Jai, are you there? Go ahead, speak up.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Jai Prabhu, boliye.
Prabhuji, so my question is related to the point that you made where you're talking about tolerance, how to tolerate situations. So, for example, if we want to eat, then we should dovetail it to say eating only Krishna Prasadam. So that was a very wonderful point, Prabhuji. But I was thinking, how is this same thing applicable for something like, say, lust? There's no corresponding Krishna conscious activity where you can dovetail this. Like, and Dhyan and everything is absolutely.
Prabhupada says, become lusty for Krishna. And Prabhupada gives an example of that Kubja. She was lusty for Krishna. You know? So, more on practical grounds for that. So, the married life is allowed. And procreation is allowed. You know, a regulated fashion, the need, this is a bodily urge. There's nothing wrong about it. That can be fulfilled in a regulated fashion. We are not on a Jnana mark, it is prohibited entirely. Nobody is telling everyone to become sannyasi or a brahmachari for that reason. Okay, if you you're not able to, or you feel like that's an urge. Of course, this is not only people get married because of this. It's about emotional need. That's the main thing which we have discussed in the past also. Is emotional need, where there's need an emotional person. I mean, the support of emotional support. That's what I meant to say. So then that is allowed. Get married, have a Krishna conscious family, want to procreate. Prabhupada gave the whole system of how you can come together, unite, like all that Prabhupada books, you'll find it. Okay. In general, I would say to get over this problem of lust, with my experience, who suffered the most are the one who does not perform yajna properly. What yajna? One is that chanting is not properly done. Second, they don't do charity. Those who don't chant properly and those who don't do charity, this lust is going to hound them. We cannot take this cheaply. Now you cannot say, okay, I'll chant attentively. You cannot chant attentively unless you develop detachment. So charity is must. There is no shortcut. Now why Durga, who makes it very difficult to come out of this world? Why? Because unless you are purified, unless you are freed from all your material desires, she's going to keep poking you. So when we are attacked or hounded by some of these desires, ask, what am I not doing right? Just like it is said, Krishna does not see what you give. Krishna sees what you kept behind for yourself. You know? And until then, the problem is going to continue, which is created just to remind us, let me give it up. So many lifetimes we have done it. In all the species we have experienced it. What have I gained? A new birth. Even if you were a biggest fashion designer in your previous birth, who owned 10,000 pants, 20,000 jackets, next life you were still born naked. Your parents have to still get you a coupon to cover your body. It doesn't matter. So many lifetimes you've done it. Why? We unnecessarily have chosen to struggle. No, my desires. Okay, struggle. Durga is there to take care of you. All right? Okay, Mother Induradika, go ahead. Unmute. Yes, Mother.
Prabhuji, this is regarding the three doers. So we desire and Lord Krishna checks our karma balance. And in that also, if we have done bad karma, we have to face the bad effects of it. If we have done good karma, then he will fulfill our desires. and then Prakriti will actually implement it.
No, it's not like that. If you've done good karma, which means if a thief has done good karma, then Krishna allows him to steal. According to your logic.
Prabhuji,
So if
what
a
I mean to
terrorist,
say-
if a
Okay.
terrorist has done a good karma, enough good karma, then Krishna will allow him to terrorize innocent people. That's not like that it is mentioned. What is mentioned? Through the check and balance system of your karma, your desires are sanctioned. Not that good karma only sanctions it. Then your karma becomes responsible for everything. Based on your karmic, why law of karma has been created? So that when we do something wrong, we are punished. There has to be a law. We have to be held accountable. Therefore, that is the law of karma. So just like how much ever amount of money you deposit in the bank, that much you can withdraw.
Correct.
So who is held responsible? I am held responsible. But in this case, you cannot do anything independently. Ultimately, Paramatma has to sanction.
Correct.
Now, it's a good desire, good karma, bad karma. We don't know on what parameters your desires are sanctioned. That is not clear. So don't say if we have enough good karma, then my desire will be sanctioned. So somebody can challenge you then. Acha, those who are terrorists, they would have done good karma to terrorize people. So please don't bring it to that. We don't know exactly. It's not mentioned like that. Good karma, bad karma. It is mentioned based on karmic account balance.
Okay. But Prabhuji,
How
I
it
have
functions,
heard,
we don't know.
yeah, but I have heard others saying that supposing, but this bad karma and good karma in our previous lives of whatever, it cannot be balanced. If you have done something bad in the past, you have to face the effect of it. And if you
Correct.
have,
See, that is reactions, mother. That is prarabdha and aprarabdha.
Okay.
You are discussing about desires.
Okay. No, okay. I
That's a
actually went to
different
this.
thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
वो तो
Okay.
reactions आपको मिलेगा because of that. Now
Yeah,
you have
correct.
certain desire. How the desire gets fulfilled, that is also based on karmic account. That's the point.
Correct. So Prabhuji, I just wanted to further to this. Now also we are always, when we are desiring things and when we are doing things, we are actually kind of building our karmic account, isn't it? So it's a continuous
yes.
cycle. Is it?
Oh, yes.
Huh? So
Yes,
if we
yes.
desire good things, if we are doing Krishna
Pious,
consciousness,
impious, whatever action we perform, the cycle has been created.
our karma account is getting actually either it's getting increased or decreased, whatever. The cycle, continuous cycle.
Correct.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, thanks.
So I do see there are some hands. If we can just pause for a few minutes because our time is up. I will take your questions if you don't mind. I just can quickly discuss about OBA thing. And then if in case devotees have to leave, they can leave. And for those who have questions, we can take that so that others don't have to wait for that if you're all fine with that. So we have what we call as open book assignment. So I guess we